Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast. You guys, Dr. Ann and I are here today, and we have a topic that we are both very passionate about. And I was telling her, it's funny, our last podcast, I was telling her I slightly scripted it, not even scripted, but just gave myself more notes than I typically would. And I fumbled more. But this is a topic where I don't really have any notes. I don't really have anything written down, but just a topic that I know you and I both can just
Oh yeah.
spitfire back and forth about. And so it's going to be a very, not that all of our conversations aren't very organic, but it's funny because I find myself less prepared the more prepared I am. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way.
So we're going to be talking about today, and I know you guys are going to love this one, why you're gaining weight despite being, if you could see me right now, you're watching this on the YouTube channel, despite being quote unquote, yes, quotations, healthy,
Uh-huh.
right? Nicole, I'm eating clean, I'm working out. Why am I still gaining weight? And this is the if you want to call it maybe the clean eating lie that nobody tells, regardless of menopause. Menopause is absolutely going to require you to be a bit more strategic with your nutrition. There's going to require more intentionality when it comes to your nutrition in menopause, but just in general, the clean eating lie is just a myth because you can eat clean, you can eat healthy all day long. And if you are eating clean and eating healthy and you're in a calorie surplus, you're going to gain weight. If you're eating clean and you're eating healthy and you're eating at your maintenance calories, you're going to sustain and maintain your weight. And if you're eating clean and you're eating healthy and you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. That is the foundation of how fat loss works, right? It's energy balance. But we're going to dive into not just the logical, or maybe not logical, but the tactical piece of this, which I'm going to speak to. But I also want to talk about the psychological piece of this with Dr. Anna. She's like getting all excited to talk about just the mental mindset around, and let's just kick this off with a banger, Ann, the mindset around why so many women associate eating less with being good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're gonna touch on the topic, and it's interesting because we're touching on some degrees of moralistic perfectionism. In other words, I'm a better human being if I can do this. And this is very culture specific in America because we regard low weight as being something that is better for us because we struggle to achieve it. This happens throughout cultures routinely in terms of, whether or not you're tan or not tan based upon whether or not you're working in the fields, that kind of stuff. So in
And
America, we
social
really,
media only amplifies all of this. I just want to throw
oh,
that in.
amen. Amen. And so because what we learn and what we hear a lot of is if you are overweight, it is your fault because you lack self-control. And while self-control sometimes can be a component of weight, we tend to then relate that not eating enough or eating low calories or being able to go all day and just eat dinner is the preferred thing because it means that we have self-discipline and self-control.
Hmm.
And so when I see people in my office, usually it's because they're coming to me not because they're concerned about intermittent fasting or concerned about the keto diet that they've been on, but simply because they can do it really well, and they can do it really well for a couple of weeks, maybe sometimes just a few days, a few months. Maybe they've done it for a few years, but then something happens, they fall off the wagon, and then they're binging or they're really struggling with getting back on, or it doesn't seem to be working for them anymore. Like I only eat, and I have a good friend, and she's an amazing woman. And almost every single time I see her, sweetest person, she says to me, I'm not hungry all day and then I just eat dinner, but I can't lose any weight. And she's not doing it ironically because she's trying to do this on purpose. Her hunger cues are messed up and she's still not losing weight. But we regard this like it says something about us as human beings, that we have self-control, we have self-discipline, that we are better people because we can do it. And so even if my weight doesn't do what I want it to do, at a bare minimum, at least I can stick to 1,200 calories. Or at a bare minimum, at least I can only eat one time a day or two times a day, or I can wait until noon before I have the first bite of something, despite the fact that I am so hungry. And we get stuck in these loops. We get so stuck in the loops that when I encourage people to actually eat appropriately, or let's start with breakfast, something small, like let's even just get in a protein shake for breakfast, just anything for breakfast, they melt down about this. Legitimately, they really get mad at me about it, and they will struggle to then institute appropriate meal times or even appropriate food during those meal times because they believe that it actually is saying something about them that they no longer have this thing to latch on to.
Ooh.
And the reason why this is so important is because many of us are raised in society in a world in which we believe that achievements equate worth. So we go to school and we work really hard and we get good grades, and all the teachers and our parents maybe are thrilled that we have great grades and we're the A+ student and we're noticed, and we play sports and we get recognized for sports. And the people that are doing really well get noticed, they get recognized, they get praised. It doesn't matter if they're gifted or not, they get praised for it. You're such a hard worker, you're so diligent, you're so bright. And so we look at food through the exact same lens that it says something about us as human
Mhm.
beings. And one of my favorite things to do in therapy is teach people how to look at themselves through a better lens and through the real lens, which is where their heart is and what that says about their character.
Mm.
Because once we can get to character, it doesn't matter whether or not I got an A. It doesn't matter whether or not I skipped breakfast this morning. It doesn't matter how hard I'm working at this diet or killing myself in the gym. I'm still a good person. And so we have to learn how to actually create a divide between food as something that kind of communicates that I'm a good person to the rest of the world or I'm good enough, and actually who I am as a human being and what it is that I want for the world and how I show up.
Mm.
And once we get the clarity on that, it's so beautiful because we can let go of these things that we're hanging on to that aren't serving us.
1,000%, 1,000%. I want to dive into, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And I speak to this often, but labeling food, right? Because I truly feel like just even this clean eating label in general is toxic. And I understand when people say I'm eating quote unquote clean, they typically mean I'm trying to incorporate more fruits and veggies. Love that. I'm trying to eat better quality food. Love that. I'm trying to eat less processed food. Love that. I absolutely love that. However, labeling food is really setting you up for for failure here long term because what I
Yeah.
see happen is it's like, okay, the donut is bad, right? So I label anything that is considered, a treat or what you typically wouldn't consider clean. The donut is bad because the donut is insert the reason I can't lose weight, the donut, I eat too much of it, whatever it is, the donut is bad, but yet kale is virtuous. And so when we label foods, we pedalize that, or we put them on a pedestal. And so the donut is bad, I can't eat the donut. And then what do? We restrict these bad foods, right? Because we shouldn't be eating them. And so, what does that do every single time, Anne? Every single time that we restrict and then we restrict and we restrict, it
Well,
leads to the binge.
yes. And chronically, that is the healthier part of us. So when it actually does lead to a binge, it actually is a sign that we are healthy human beings because we're hungry and we need food and we enjoy it.
Yep, yep, 100%. And so if we can let go of this good food versus bad food mentality and we can stop assigning emotion to food. Food is nor good nor is it bad. Are there foods that fuel us differently? And you guys hear me talk about this all the time. Yes, 1,000%. And people say 80-20. I'm more like the 90-10, but 80+% of your day really should come from single ingredient whole food sources, foods that are going to fuel you differently. And then we have the flexibility, the 10 to 20% for the fun foods, for the soul foods, for life, right? And enjoying date night with your husband, girls' night out without having guilt and shame that's wrapped up into food. Because what happens is we start this spiral of clean eating all week long and then the weekend rolls around and that's typically when we tend to be a bit more social, we go out, we
Huh?
hit the restaurants, whatever it may be, and then that's what leads to that binge. And this is exactly what keeps women in the space where they're dieting mentally but they're not dieting physically because the mental aspect of it is all week long I am basically starving myself, right? Because I'm eating clean. It's the,
Be
yep,
good.
I'm being good. Exactly that mentality. And it's the chicken, the kale, health, salads. And then the weekend rolls around. And this is when I allow myself to have, I hate the concept of cheat meals. I
Uh-huh. Yes.
hate cheat meals. It is basically just giving yourself permission to binge. That's what you're doing. You're saying, this is my cheat. And people these days don't even label it as meals. It's like a whole cheat day. This is my cheat day of what I'm going to allow myself to eat whatever I want within this day. And I'm all about you guys giving yourself meals where you go out and you say, look, whether it be an untracked meal, I'm going to be a bit more flexible with my nutrition, but labeling it as just a cheat meal alone. Do you know how easy it is to sit down at a restaurant with girlfriends or your spouse and consume 2,500 calories in one meal?
Oh, yes. So
Especially
easy.
when there's booze involved. It is
Yes.
so easy, right? And it is that one meal. I've seen one meal throw somebody out of a calorie deficit for the entire freaking week. And this is where people struggle when it comes to, we're just speaking to fat loss, obviously, clean eating hindering your fat loss goals. But the strategy behind, like, if you want to lose body fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit. That's just foundation of what it is. And fat loss doesn't happen on the daily, it happens on the average, right? It's the average of your consumption. And so if you are quote unquote clean eating all week and that puts you in that 1,200 calorie range, because that seems to be the, cool number that people hit these days to lose weight, and you put yourself within that range, and then you have one day, and even if it's that one meal and you just go ham, you go balls to the wall, and then you put yourself even back on track, I mean, that can literally throw you out of a deficit for the entire week. But that isn't typically what tends to happen, is it? Most women spiral from that one meal. And I'd love for you to talk about psychologically why that happens.
Well, and it goes back to even the way that we're labeling things. So the reason why good and bad as even foods is problematic is because what type of people eat good foods? What type of people eat bad foods?
Mm.
What type of person has cheat meals or cheat days? Someone who lacks self-control, so a cheater, right? Like, so someone who lacks self-control, someone who lacks self-discipline, someone like, and so the reason why using pejorative language to really, or even adjectives to describe things that that we want to stay away from, that actually becomes really challenging for us, is because it cultivates this idea that I am someone who engages in this type of behavior, that I am someone who lacks self-control, I am someone who lacks discipline, I just can't do it. And when we remove the word cheat from it, when we remove the word bad from it, we're removing that label from that food, but we also remove that label from ourselves.
Hmm.
So I am not a cheater because I had a donut this morning. I enjoyed the donut. It was lovely. I don't lack self-discipline because I had pizza and wings last week with ranch dressing, which, by the way, is the only way that you should be eating wings and pizza.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
I just enjoyed food. But when there's a strategy behind it, when it fits into the day, when it fits into your day, and when you understand the portion size that your body can take, then it just becomes a part of your day, like everything else that we do in, right? Like, so I wouldn't go on the road, and I just drove my daughter back from downtown, and I sped, but I don't consider myself to be a speeder per se. Like, I am not a bad driver, okay? But I do speed quite frequently, as a matter of fact.
We all do.
but but the flip is that if we are saying that it's something that's bad for us to do, then we tend to look at ourselves more negatively. And when we look at ourselves more negatively, we don't enforce process related goals. And process related goals, even around self discipline, are keeping things measured and consistent.
Hmm.
Keeping things measured and consistent isn't boring. It doesn't mean that we're having the same food every single day. I mean, we could. I really love my breakfast that I have every single morning. It's the same thing on repeat for like months. But it comes with things that are interesting, things that are tasteful, things that we enjoy. And when we're enjoying foods and we're giving ourselves permission to enjoy all the foods that we really, really crave, what happens is that instead of it being a time that I get to kind of throw caution to the wind and do whatever I want to, and this happens, I think, for a lot of us on vacation too, same phenomena.
Hmm.
I'm going to use my credit cards. Okay. That's a really bad way to plan for it, because then we wind up in debt, right? You could save the whole year, but then wind up in debt for one vacation for a week,
Oh,
right?
great
Same
analogy.
thing
Yeah.
happens, the same exact thing happens with food, is that if I didn't cultivate a steady plan for this, how it fits into my life, then I'm doing things that makes it not fit for me to maintain discipline and control and maintain an ability for me to walk away feeling proud of myself and how I ate it.
Mm.
Because when I say caution to the wind, what happens is that instead of one piece of pizza and maybe four wings, I'm going to have three pieces of pizza or half the pizza and as many wings as my belly can hold. Plus, then I'm going to end with cookies and ice cream. And all of those foods are totally fine, but the portion sizes around them are where self discipline comes from
a hundred,
because we have to know how it fits in, right?
100%. And this bleeds into the next piece of this I want to talk about. And we may even slightly, maybe not disagree, but I would love to know your thoughts here. So I truly feel like we've talked about tracking and why both of us feel like tracking is so ungodly important. And it's a skill set that you need to develop. It'll come with a slight learning curve. But once you've mastered this skill set, it is the only way that you'll ever get to a place where you're truly ever able to lose the weight and actually keep it off. And it's just, we talk about often how it's just like budgeting a bank account. It's a budget and you need to understand what you're bringing in and what you're spending, right? And being able to balance the whole thing out. And so we have the same belief system with tracking, but I feel like a lot of women, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this here. I feel like they go to and they gravitate towards generic things like quote unquote clean eating because they don't want to take the time and the energy to truly understand what their overall caloric intake looks like, to educate themselves
Yeah.
because tracking, I'll give it to you. When you're brand new to it, it feels overwhelming. It can feel slightly daunting. It's a new skill set. It's typically one of those fears a mile wide and inch deep kind of thing. Once you start doing it, you're like, oh, I was really making this out to be way more than what it really is kind of thing. But I'd love for you to like maybe give your thoughts to this because I feel like a lot of women gravitate towards even things like keto and Whole30 and all of these generic restrictive approaches because it's so much easier to say, or at least I guess it feels easier to say, I'm just going to cut out carbs because I can do that, right? Like I know what a carb is. I'm just going to cut them out and I'm going to stop eating it. Than it is to say, okay, I'm going to really get a grasp. And whether that be, I always say it's like, bank account's a great example. Who's ever like not looked at their bank account because they don't want to know what that number is? I've lived many days and you're just like, well, if it's in the negative and I don't know, then it's just not a reality of what it really is kind of thing. Same thing with your nutrition, right? If I don't really know how many calories I'm really consuming, is it really a thing? And so I feel like women gravitate towards generic restrictive approaches because they feel easier than accepting and taking accountability for what's really A, going on, or B, wanting to educate them with that piece of it.
Yes. And I love the fact that you said easier. I believe that that's what we are. I believe that's what we're sold. And I know a number of people who have done, as an example, the keto diet. And if you eliminate a food group, any food group, yes, you will lose weight. You just will. Okay.
You're eliminating
Unless you're eating a
calories.
ton. Like,
Yeah.
yes. But as our body adjusts to that, it will burn through that more efficiently. And then what will happen is that we'll begin to eat more. And what we're buying is this concept that we can eat whatever we want to eat as long as it fits into this category. And what I see people struggle with, because now I'm emotionally eating now, and I have these conversations all day long, and it breaks my heart when I hear people say the highlight of my day was the highlight of my day, the highlight of my vacation, the highlight of my family gathering was what we had to eat. I'm not saying it can't be something that you really enjoy, but if that is the highlight, we've got a food addiction problem at that point because that means that we're not getting connection, we're not getting fulfillment in other areas. And so I think what we want to do is we want to buy into this idea that I can have whatever I want as long as it's clean. And I think Weight Watchers does this a lot
Oh,
where
I
they're
was just
just
going to
like,
bring up Weight Watchers. Point
we
system,
got free foods. You
2
can eat
points.
whatever you want of these free
Yeah.
foods. You can eat as much vegetables. And while yes, they're less calorie laden and they have lots of really great fiber and lots of solid nutrition that you can get. The problem is that there are still calories with those foods. They're small. Okay. And if you're eating a small portion of them intuitively and you have like a cup of carrots, like, all right, it's not going to make a ton of difference, or a cup of broccoli. It's not going to make a ton of difference in your daily scheme. If you're having an entire bowl full of carrots and maybe with some ranch dressing or some hummus or something else, that is going to make a really big
Yeah.
impact. And so I think, we want to buy into this idea that we can still eat like trash pandas as long as we're eating the correct good foods.
Hmm.
When in reality, what will happen is that we'll just keep that behavioral that behavioral process alive for us. We'll keep that emotional tie to wanting to use food to cope. And that will keep us from losing weight effectively. Now, don't come after me, those people that have done Weight Watchers and would swear by it. Like, I'm not saying that it can't work for people. What I'm saying is that it actually creates a lot more problems for people because it has no ability to reflect what it is that you're actually consuming, how to get good nutritional balance. It does teach some really basic skills that I think need to be taught about clean eating that I think are really integral to success. But I don't believe that it's long term very successful for people. And I see a lot of people that can do it for months, do it for years. And then I see people that have even been higher up in the organization, have been like teachers and coaches and all this other stuff that are then coming to me going, I didn't want to return because all my behaviors came back and I started eating horrible again.
Yep. I'm going to say what you're not. Weight Watchers, helping women regain the weight for 60 plus years, no matter how many times they rebrand. Like, I'm just going to call it out there for what it is. And I have done so much content centered around Weight Watchers because women are like, and they try to make the argument of, well, I'm counting points. You're saying to count macros, there's no difference. And I'm like, but there kind of is, because the way that Weight Watchers frames it is, first and foremost, your points and your calories, they never equate. Your points always equal
Uh-huh.
dog shit low calories. Okay. But then you
Yep.
have these free point foods. But like you said, Anne, you're listing off some of the things like carrots and broccoli. This list is always changing. I've seen salmon on this list. I've seen eggs on this list, and salmon and eggs, amazing protein source, just quality whole food nutrition sources, but they're calorically dense. And so what you
Yes.
see happen is women, just like Ann said, you eat your points for the day, and then you have this mentality of free points, so they don't count. And so it's like, well, I've already went through my free points or my regular points, and now I'm going to basically gorge on the free points because they don't matter. They're free. They don't count. And so the education, they're just missing the mark. And then don't even get me started on the whole rollover of points and how they're saving points and trying to allocate towards the weekend. Like, the whole concept of it just really promotes a warped relationship with food, but the lack of education when it comes to what it truly looks like, not just to fuel your body correctly, but just the overall awareness of, what your body needs. And that's the part that I struggle with. And we've worked with so many women. And just like you said, we've had quite a few women that were super high on that. Is it a ladder? I don't know if it's like an MLM. I'm not quite even sure how they structure it. Um, I know that they have this whole, or they used to at least, that if you stay within 5 pounds of your goal weight after so long, then you get a free membership. So they basically reward you for the scale not fluctuating. I don't know about you, but I can fluctuate 5 pounds with a crazy, insane leg day and a good poo. Like,
Yep.
I can't. Like, I'm just going to call that for what it is. So this whole, I'm going to be rewarded if I weigh in at a certain weight, or maybe it was some 5 pounds, or maybe it was like 3 pounds. I don't know. But it was just this mentality, and how they reward women is just, everything about it's just so ass backwards. And it hurts my heart that the fact that it's just still around, and they have so many people that are so bought into this approach still. And like you said, there are women who use it and they've been able to keep the weight off, and they swear by it. And believe me, they're out in my comment section. They're coming in hot. I hear from them every single day. But I would much rather, and I want to speak, Ann, now that you're here too, really about the psychological piece when it comes to tracking our intake and what people deem as an, and you're qualified to speak on this because I'm speaking to the everyday average female right now. I'm not speaking to somebody, and I want to make this very clear, who struggles with an eating disorder, or just that kind of thing. And you can speak to that much more effectively and from a space than I can. But what women deem as obsessive or compulsive, or just, I don't want my kids seeing me doing this because it's going to create a really bad relationship with food. And I look at it completely different. What somebody that to me gives me complete freedom, because my tracking allows me to eat anything that I want. However, like, in as long as it fits within my day, right? And again,
Yes.
90+% of my day comes from Whole Foods. But if I want to eat it, we're going to use the donut again. If I want to eat a donut for the day, I know how to eat the donut and fit it and track it within my day and still have a body that I love. You stay within this restrictive box of good food versus bad food, this clean eating mentality. And that, honestly, to me, is more restrictive and obsessive than budgeting my quote unquote caloric bank account.
Yeah, and I really want to speak to the fear of our children learning bad eating habits here.
Hmm.
You just touched on it, but that's the thing that just stuck out to me because when we live in fear of our kids developing bad patterns and we are not talking about the bad patterns that we developed and what we learned about it, we almost always reinstitute the bad patterns in our kids. And that is because the stuff that we are not learning about, the stuff that we feel ashamed of, the stuff that we feel like we need to protect our children from, is the stuff that will repeat in family units very often because we haven't taught them how to spot things,
Mhm.
because we're not teaching them effectively how we're managing it. So I speak very often about this in this podcast. I know that I do a lot of stuff even in my office. I am somebody in recovery from an eating disorder. My kids see me pull out a food scale every now and then. One of the things that and I had to start from ground zero. So when I started with my coaches, I was starting ground zero. I got a food scale. I was like measuring everything, and now I do it more by eyesight because I figured out what it all looks like. But I almost always pull out my full food scale when I'm measuring peanut butter because I love
Okay.
measuring peanut butter with my heart, right? And when I talk to my kids about this is the healthy piece. My kids know I have an eating disorder. My kids know I struggle. My kids know that I've had menopause and I've had babies and lost and gained weight. And my children understand that I'm pulling out that scale. I'm pulling it out because I measure peanut butter with my heart. We laugh about it. It is not something that is awful. This is how I manage the way that my relationship with peanut butter. This is how I keep myself on track. Am I okay eating peanut butter when I'm outside of the house? Do I have to weigh it outside of the house? Absolutely not, because I can kind of instinctively look and see what's an appropriate portion for myself at this point in my journey. But I did this and I talked about the whole journey with my kids because that helps my kids and empowers my kids to make good choices when they struggle with something,
Hmm.
and good choices when something's hard for them or when they don't know, to be able to check, to be able to look into stuff. And when we do this and when we open the door for even tracking, it's just data. And so many of us, and I hear it all the time, I don't want to track because I might go over my calories, then I'm going to feel bad, or then I'm going to go under my calories, then I'm going to feel great. But what if I binge, or what if I go off track, or what if I eat too many calories above this, and then I'm just going to want to give up and then I'm going to binge? Well, we got to address that problem, don't we got to address the problem that you're having in receiving information without being in a personal attack on you as a human being. You
Hmm.
didn't fail, even if you ate 800 calories above your daily goals. You did not fail. It's just information. We go back and we can problem solve what happened. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you worked out a little bit more. Maybe you're emotionally eating. Doesn't matter what the reason is. But the cool part is that when I can separate the data from who I am as a human being, I now can use the data effectively to meet my goals.
100%. I love that you brought this up because most people look at tracking as a way to be restricted, but we utilize tracking as a space of addition. And I love that you brought up your kids into this because I teach my son the same exact thing. He is the quarterback for his football team, and his nutrition dramatically impacts his performance. And
Mhm.
so we teach, particularly pre-workout or pre-game, making sure you're fueling your body with enough carbs and enough protein. Post-workout, making sure that you're getting enough carbs and enough protein in for recovery. Just making sure you're getting enough protein in general. I mean, how many women struggle to hit their protein goals daily? Most women struggle to get enough protein in every single day. My son struggles to get enough protein in as well, right? Like they want the calorically dense, highly palatable foods. And it's not that we don't incorporate those. And it's not that I don't allow him to eat those things. But it's like, if you're going to have mac and cheese, then dude, you're having some extra lean ground beef mixed into it, or you're having some chicken with it. You're going to have a protein, you're going to have a fiber source. And he understands all of this now. He understands how to weigh his food. And not because I want him to be hyper obsessive over weighing his food and tracking his food, but I want him to understand the dramatic shift within his performance when it comes to his nutrition, right? Because football is, we eat, sleep, and breathe football in this house. And when he understands when he fuels his body correctly, he performs better versus when he doesn't fuel his body correctly, he doesn't perform as well. And so that for me is a big, big driving piece of like, helping to make sure that he's incorporating good nutrition. Because when I can link it to his performance on the field, it clicks for him. It clicks. And so this is the same thing for maybe, just women in general who your goal is fat loss. If you can understand that obviously amounts and numbers drive that. And you can do this in a place of which, you can use it to work towards that end goal, I guess is what I'm trying to say of like, okay, this data is helping me get to that end goal quicker. I mean, because I get asked all the time, it's like, well, can I lose weight without tracking? Sure, absolutely you could. But you could also pass a test without studying. I guess you could buy a house without budgeting. Is it the most
Yeah.
effective way to get there, though? Probably not. And where most women struggle when it comes to their weight loss, fat loss, is that the time frame of which it takes. Like we all want it. We're human beings. We want it now, right? Like it's that Amazon Prime mentality. So why in the world are we dragging a process that could be 8 to 12 weeks out for months and months and months on end? Because simply you refuse to track the data. You refuse to get like, you don't want to own the numbers and understand. And we can make decisions that are based off of data, not just off of emotion. And that's what tends to happen for women when it comes to their weight loss, fat loss goals, is they want to make decisions based off of emotion instead of logic. And when you understand what's going on with the data, it allows us to pull out that piece of it, right? And this is where coaching comes into play because we can give you, you're just looking right, what's right in front of you instead of that 10,000 foot view. And, coach comes in with that logical piece opposed to the emotional piece of which we want to operate from. But I see you shaking your head, Anne. So what do you have?
Well, and as you were talking, I was thinking about, I know we made the connection before about managing finances and looking at finances just as budget, right? Like,
Mhm.
so when we can do this, the really cool part, and I think lattes from Starbucks might be a great example. If I go and I get a latte and it's $10, okay, and it's
Unfortunately,
560.
that's the price point these days to get a freaking latte.
I don't have lattes at Starbucks often
I
now.
don't either, but
But so it's $10, it's like 560 calories, maybe it's 480. Okay. And I take a look at this over the course of a month. I've spent maybe 40, maybe $50, depending on how long the month is. And I've absorbed, what, 2,000 calories in those drinks. Okay. Once a week. All right. But at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of 3 months, at the end of 6 months, I can go back and go, man, I could have used that money for XYZ back, or I could have used those calories for date night with my husband and then finishing up at the cake bake shop and having some really amazing cake. All right. When we begin to look at it like that, what happens is that we expand options. We
mm,
start seeing things a little bit more clearly because, I mean, it's just carbs. That's what a latte is predominantly. It's just carbs. You're getting maybe some calcium from the dairy. You
yeah.
like there's not a ton in it, right? In the same vein, I could go and I could say, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to spend $10, but I'm going to get a different drink. And that different drink only has 150 calories in it. Again, I'm not real big on calorie counting, but it is a data point. And now I have room that when I want to go sometimes and get an iced latte that's only 150 calories, I can have a small brownie with it. All right, I just budgeted for the brownie. You
Mm.
see how I did that? Like I didn't do anything different. I just chose differently. But if we can't take a look at what it is that we're consuming and how our choices are impacting the bottom line, then we don't have any flexibility to choose differently. And that's where we stay stuck in this place of fear. And I hear people say all the time, well, and I've heard this before, you can have donuts because you're thin. I haven't always been thin. Well, you can have donuts because you don't binge on them. I used to binge on them really badly.
Yeah, I love that you brought this up because I have so much to say to this. And I love that you brought up the fact that, like you said, I'm not huge on. So, Anne works with my team specifically. I know we've talked about this before, and I am a firm believer of getting women to a place when I say we track for the short term, so we do not have to track for the long term. I don't want anybody to feel attached to a food scale or a tracking app for the rest of their life, that they have to weigh out every tiny little thing that goes into their mouth and they're carrying a portable scale with them out to restaurants. Like, that's not what I want for anybody. Nobody should want to live that. And there are some women who honestly love it. And if that is you, girlfriend, cool, fire. I'm just saying the majority of women want the flexibility and freedom that comes with intuitive eating, right? Like, that's living your best life. But Anne made such a great point because she has the actual from taking a period of time of tracking her intake and the data and the education that comes with that. She can now look at these and she can say, cool, I could have this full blood latte. I don't drink lattes either. I would never, there's way too many calories for me. Like I would, no, 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 no. But cool. We're going to use the latte example. I could have this full-blooded latte for 400 plus calories, or I could do maybe the non-fat sugar-free version and add in a brownie today because that sounds really freaking good for even slightly less calories and be even more satiated. But she has the awareness around what that looks like, right? And this is why when we say just clean eating never will serve you because you could have this clean eating. And so we're talking foods that aren't considered clean. But Anne has a banging bod. Like she's over here talking and I'm seeing her biceps like, bulging out. And it's like she has an amazing body that she feels really good in. And it's because she chose to adopt and educate herself with these tactics. And we're not even talking clean foods. We're talking the latte and the brownie, right? But you're over here eating clean and working out, and you won't allow yourself to have the donut or the latte or the brownie, and you're still overweight and you're still struggling and you don't get it. And now you're not just frustrated, you are holding resentment. You're really freaking pissed off. And this is the danger of what clean eating does. It keeps women stuck in a cycle. And this is exactly what toxic diet culture is. And I see you nailing, you're shaking your head again. And so,
Yeah, the when I would run groups in an eating disorder facility, ironically, the people who fought me the most, wasn't because we would see everybody from people with anorexia, bulimia, as well as binge eating disorder. The people who fought me the most about eating desserts were the binge eaters and the
mm,
people that were overweight. And I mean, fought, like were near the point of tears or cussing me out because we were having them eat a brownie that wasn't it was hospital brownie. It wasn't that great. But let's be honest, it wasn't a good brownie. But it was, and again it went back to I don't deserve this brownie.
mm,
Oh, the amount of pain that we go through as human beings when we misallocate a food to our worthiness, and how that muddies the water for what we need to consume and how to manage our weight is phenomenal. And it wasn't about the brownie. It was about now, like I don't deserve this. Like if you're going to have me eat something with that many calories and that much fat, you should be handing me an avocado or some salmon right now. And I'm like, but you don't like, but you're not craving and binging on the salmon and the avocado. You're binging on the brownies. Like we got to learn how to have peace with it. And there is so much power that comes in the ability to separate mentally the difference between that brownie means that there's something wrong with me, or I don't have good discipline, or I'm unworthy of the brownie too. Simply, this is just something that I get to enjoy every now and then and it fits.
mm.
There's a strategy involved with that and a mindful process that's involved with that. And what's really cool is that when you do that, the binging goes away
Mhm.
because you get all the food you want.
Yeah.
And it may not be in the portion size that you want it, but you could have whatever food that you want when you retrain your body how to have that food and you retrain your brain that it's not a reflection of who you are as a human being.
Yeah. And it comes with that choice and that choice. And I love that you brought this up is so impactful because I talk about this all the time. It's like, we're going to use the donut again, right? It's like restrict, restrict, restrict because the donut's bad. You end up, the coworker brings the box of donuts in the office. You don't just eat one, you eat six. And I always say like an asshole. It's my funny little saying, but you end up binging on that donut because you don't know when you're going to allow yourself to eat the donut again. But when you start to fuel your body correctly, you start to work through the emotional attachment that you have with food and you're very mindful and intentional and you get to a place where you truly are in the driver's seat. You will, I promise you, and I know that this seems so far-fetched for some listening to this, but it is so powerful when somebody offers you a donut and you're like, yeah, I don't want it because I look at that donut and I was like, I could eat the donut, but I'm having burritos tonight and I'd rather have the cheese and the guac and the avocado, right? Like that sounds really good to me. And that's so powerful when you understand how to make those swaps and those trade-offs. And maybe tomorrow somebody offers you a donut and that day you're like, oh, hell yeah, the donut looks amazing and I'm going to eat the donut. And you understand the swaps, right? And just like Ann said, you can eat whatever you want. You may not be able to eat it in the amounts that you want to eat and you're used to, I guess, what deems as normal for those that struggle with binging. But those binges become so much less and infrequent when you understand how to truly fuel your body. I promise you the need for the donut is going to dramatically increase when you are eating enough protein, enough fiber, enough calories. Your body feels satiated. I promise you. And again, I know that you're like some might be listening to this rolling their eyes, but I've worked with well over 1,000 women in the last 5 years. I promise you, there's a wee bit of data here that
Yeah.
those cravings will decrease when you understand how to feel your body. And then you're also working through the internal emotional part that comes with, obviously you being in control with your relationship with food. But that piece of it, like when I go out, you guys, I love going out to eat, and I don't necessarily macrofy when I go out to eat, but I love knowing simple swaps that I can make that allow me to enjoy everything that I want to enjoy without feeling gluttonous, right? And so if I want the burger, maybe I have the burger and I take half of the bun off so I can have some fries. And then maybe I want, instead of an appetizer, the dessert sounds better. So these are smart swaps that I make, I ask for things with no oil, no butter, sauces are on the side. I'm one of those people. And I always warn the, waiter, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going to be slightly difficult here. And they're always so accommodating, right? I know a lot of people like struggle because they're like, I'm embarrassed. And I'm like, oh no, girlfriend, I rewrite the whole entire menu to match what it's like. You're paying for that. But then
Yes.
there's smart swaps that you can make that make a dramatic difference. And I'm going to start creating some content, I think, showing the same exact meal that looks the same exact, like when visually you look at it, but stupid swaps that you can make that make hundreds of differences, like hundreds of calories of a difference within the meal itself. And
Yes.
I think I'm going to start creating some content just to give a visual piece when you look at, you're like, that looks like the same exact meal. And it is, but with smart swaps of 96 for ground beef instead of 80/20, right? Like small tweaks that we can make that make a huge difference within the amount of calories that we're consuming. But I love that you brought that up because it's impactful. It's so empowering when you understand how to do that. And that is how people, I know that there's so many women out there that look, and I was one of these females, so I can speak very, very openly to this. I would roll my eyes. I would like internally cuss this female out. Like, how can you eat like that and look the way that you do? And I was so angry, just like, because I'm like,
Yes.
I'm over here working harder than anybody in the room and I still have 50 plus pounds to lose. But look at you. You're like eating a burger and fries and you look the way that you do. How does this work? And it's because she's very intentional with her nutrition.
Yes.
That's how it works. It's not that she has any magical powers that you don't have. Are there certain things when we talk to hormone downregulation and insulin resistance? Yes, you guys, yes. But somebody looks the way that they do, that you look and you swoon over because they are very intentional with their nutrition and they know how to make smart swaps and choices and whatnot to enjoy the foods. And then some days, like Ann said, you go out, you have pizza, you have wings with a side of ranch dressing, and you enjoy every single bite of it, and you still have a body that you love.
Yes, yes. And the cool part I want to add to this is that physiologically our stomachs will shrink. So as we're learning to eat appropriate portion sizes, as we give up binging, as we get away from the weekend cheat meals and eating like a trash panda for the entire weekend or the entire meal, what's really cool is that your stomach starts dictating what you need. So when I go to a restaurant, the reason that I never worry about trying to even remotely measure at a restaurant, not to manage, not to, outside of that, how obsessive that can be for some
Mhm.
people, it's because my stomach tells me. So I'm done with, you get a big plate of food at a Mexican restaurant and I finish maybe half of it, sometimes less than that, not because I'm trying to super diet, not because I'm worried about the number of calories or the queso on something, but simply because my stomach says I had enough, I'm good,
Mhm.
and that's all I need. And when had you seen me 2 decades ago when I was trying to do something like that, that would not have been something that I was even remotely capable of. I would have finished the entire plate and still want a dessert. I would have finished, right. But now I have leftovers that I can eat for lunch the next day. I'm not wasting it. And I hear so many people talk about wasting food and not wanting to waste food. Like, you don't have to waste it, but you also don't have to eat it to not waste it,
Yep.
right? You can feel good when you walk away, but your body actually learns the methods and then it becomes much more intuitive because now your body's communicating, your stomach's communicating, I'm good. Peace out. Like, I had as much as and you're satisfied. You're not looking at the plate. I remember those days where I would look at the plate, try really hard to manage my calories and try really hard to eat next to nothing. And I'd be looking at the plate hungry, just wanting to eat the rest of it, but feeling like I couldn't because it was going to be lack of control. I'd start binging or something bad was going to happen or I'd gain all my weight back. And now I can look at that plate and go, I feel satisfied and I walk away not upset about it and
Mhm.
feeling good in my skin.
Yep, I love that. And I want to talk about what about, because I know we're going to have some people who maybe have food addictions and they're working through that. I know you work with a lot of patients working through this. What about this mentality? But Nicole, because I get this often, you don't understand. I can't eat the donut because if I eat the donut, then I eat six of them. What would you get? Because I know we have women listening to this right now with that exact, like, I can't eat it at all because if I do, it just sparks that. It's not, it's a psychological, like, what advice would you give for women who want to tackle that piece of it, right? Like they want more quote unquote self-control. They want to be able to, they hear you say you can just eat half of a brownie or half of a donut or a donut and stop. Where do you start?
Yeah, and as someone who used to binge, and my binges were epic. I don't know that I have met very many people that could binge to quite the quantity that I could. I mean, just like massive amounts of foods. I would hit multiple fast food restaurants as I was binging and eating and consuming, and still have space for more. I must have had a really large stomach. Um, really stretched it out. One of the things that we do have to do, and when I hear people say I can't eat this without the binge, one of the things that I will do initially is I'll say we're going to have to table that for a little bit. We're going to have to stop eating that food for a little bit. Now the difference is that the plan is always to bring it back,
Mm,
and the way that we bring it back by shaping in that behavior. So let's say as an example, donuts is a great food for me to talk about because it's one of my favorite binge foods. I could eat at least a dozen of them in one sitting and still have space for more food.
mm,
I could eat a lot of donuts. Um, what we're going to do to mimic that then and how to bring that food back is we actually have to on purpose go away from that food. In other words, we have to stop eating that food. And then what we have to do is we actually have to bring back foods that somewhat begin to model that food. So
mm,
if you don't binge on muffins, as example, having half a muffin and then stopping. And then you can start making maybe your own donuts if you're a cook at home that have monk fruit or stevia, not the sugar, because the sugar does give us a bigger dopamine rush, natural sweeteners or even honey to it. But we start actually mimicking that donut in smaller and smaller portions. Then when we actually do want to start bringing the donut back in, we need to have the donut in a very controlled setting. So even to this day, what I do for my kids, I talk about this often, but what I do, I just got them donuts this morning. Everybody gets their own bag. It has their name on it. I get my own bag too. It has one donut in it. That's it. I don't go out and buy a dozen donuts anymore. It might be cheaper for me to do that. And some people are like, but you get 4 extra donuts for free almost. I don't care. I do not want the extra donuts there because it stresses me out, even to this day. And I can eat donuts. So we
mm,
have to be really measured on how we're bringing those donuts back in. And it might need to look like you go out to a restaurant with someone that you care about, usually a friend, a partner, you go and you split a donut and you make sure that you have a good meal before you have that donut. And you make sure that after that donut, you go and do something that is not conducive to eating, to continuing to eat. So that looks like going on a walk, going bowling, go watch a movie, maybe without the popcorn. So anything that interrupts the behavioral pattern that
mm,
you have created to continue to eat will help change that at a neurological level. And then all we have to do is keep practicing that over and over and over again until you get more comfortable. And I hear people say this all the time. But the second I have it, I'm going to want more. And I start thinking
mm,
about it, obsessing about it for a week. Yep, been there too. I hear you. I am your people. And the only thing that we can do with that is actually sit in that discomfort and tell ourselves repeatedly, I get to have this again on Friday. I get to
mm,
have this again on whatever day. But the only way that I'm going to have it is with these boundaries. The only way that I can possibly have it is if I only get one with a friend, we're splitting the donut, and then I do something afterwards.
I love that.
And the reason why we do this is because we all have this little liar in our head. I had it too. The like, oh, I'm fine with donuts now. I can eat them. See, I did that just once. This is also what people that struggle with alcohol addiction will say. See, I had a drink. I didn't binge on it. I had 2 drinks. I didn't binge on it. I'm cured. Woo! And then a month later, a couple weeks later, they're binge drinking and they're remorseful and ashamed and so on and so forth. So we have to be really, really monitored about those boundaries, and we have to be able to stick to those boundaries. And a lot of times that involves telling someone, this is what I'm doing, this is my plan, this is how I'm going to bring this back. And then we have to stick to it. So even when my husband will say, well, honey, why don't you go buy the box? You're fine with donuts now, you have them. If my husband says this, I still will say, nope, those are the boundaries. And that helps me manage my stress. And if I'm managing my stress well, then I can have donuts and I can have them in my house and they don't create anxiety for me. I don't think about them because I already had my donut. My donut's gone, and I don't crave them, and I get to have them next week.
I love that. And I love, and what I hear you saying is that you're very intentional. You've set boundaries, like you've said, and you're very intentional with them. And that gives you the framework and the structure to still enjoy the donut without needing to binge on the donut. And, again, you guys understanding that, what we're talking about, it's a dimmer switch, right? Like it's not a light switch. It's not like you're going to get in here and be like, all of a sudden, I'm going to implement these things and I'm never going to want to binge on the donut again, right? This is going to come with a lot of intentional, mindful effort. But if you can start to look at it as the dimmer instead of the actual switch itself, that mentality shift really, it helps me a ton. It helps me a ton to look at things that way, opposed to just the, on or off switch, because it just doesn't work that way. Um, Last thing I want to speak to is, I know we've been talking about clean eating and I just the mentality in and around how that obviously can work against your fat loss goals. I want to speak to just how we can look at food in a space of not just clean versus dirty, but we can look at it from the space of addition versus subtraction, which we've been talking about, and how we can, give yourself more of the foods that you love to actually like reach your goals. And I bring this up because again, I just posted another TikTok video and I do these videos where I show women how to eat 150 grams of protein a day. And I usually give protein calorie ranges anywhere like 1800 to 2000 calories, which is very normal amount of food for the average female, you guys. And every single freaking time I post these videos, they typically tend to go viral. And they go viral not because of the content itself. They go viral because I have everybody up in my comment section. That's way too much food. I couldn't possibly eat that much food. That's way. And it's mind boggling to me that people automatically look at the volume and they look at and they associate food as being the enemy. And I'm always responding the same thing. I'm like, oh, give her 1,800 calories of pasta and wine, and nobody flinches or bats an eye. But give her 1,800 calories of whole foods, and that's just impossible. I couldn't possibly eat that much food, right? And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because how do we shift? I guess my question to you is from a psychological standpoint, how do we get out of this idea that food is the quote unquote enemy? People see volume, they see a lot of food, they associate a lot of food with quote unquote gaining weight. And if you're eating a lot of the wrong type of foods, yeah, you will gain weight. But I guess where does this shift or how does this shift start?
We honestly have to start looking at food just simply as fuel. It's like looking at calories as data, right? So we have to stop personalizing the first thing. There's a lot of fear behind this because what exists in our culture and what many of us have experienced over and over and over again with some degree of success, I might add, is diets where they restrict our calories and we're over exercising, which trashes our resting metabolic rate. It creates all kinds of internal problems and it depletes us nutritionally and depletes our energy, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we function, and I was one of those people too. We function with excess amount of caffeine and sugar. I was the like, give me sweet tarts or start like sweet tarts and well, pretty much any candy, any gummy kind of candy, gummy bears, it didn't matter, right? Like, give me gummy bears and some caffeine and I'm good to go. I missed lunch, but at least I got some energy, right? So and it's really dense and really tiny portion sizes of stuff. And so what diets do is they say, well, we're gonna help you change your patterns. And they sell us this line that we're gonna have so much freedom and we're gonna love our bodies. And they drop our calories and they give us virtually no food. We're eating worse than toddlers. We're probably eating more like infants. And we lose weight. And so we get really attached because the brain loves pattern recognition. It loves associating things. Okay. So if I eat low calories and then I have the body that I like, the only way that I can have the body that I like is by eating low calories. And when we start looking at the calories and the food that we're consuming just simply as a fuel source, and think about for those of us that are parents, your toddlers, yes, there are some days that we give them chicken nuggets and fries and we call it a day. It's like, all right, well, you got cereal. I did the best you survived and so did I. That's the best I got. Now we got a lot of kids. There are many days that happened for me. And there are other days that we're really mindful around the things that they're eating. We want to make sure that they have good fruits and vegetables. We want to give them exposure to different things, just like we want to expose them to like unique, exciting activities outside the home. right? Enriching environments. We want them to learn, we want them to play, we want them to enjoy things in their life. Um, and so what we do is we actually create a world for our children where we're providing lots of stimulation and lots of good fuel, and we're not telling them they're bad kids because they had an extra apple. We're not telling them that they failed because they got really hungry at dinner after they played all afternoon and they ate dinner plus they had more, right? They just needed more. And so when we start looking at food just simply as a technique, right? So it's just data, it's just fuel, and this is a technique to get the body that I want, to fuel my muscles and increase my metabolism. I have to eat, and I have to eat good nutrition. This isn't good or bad foods. I have to have a majority of the time, I have to be eating foods that are clean for me and whole foods, right? Now it's just simply information to us. It's data, it's good fuel. That's it.
100%. I always tell women the real flex is being able to eat as much as humanly possible and being able to, whether that be in a dieting phase or even a maintenance phase, and being able to reach your goals, right? But women wear this 1,200 calories a day as a badge of honor. Like women wear that
Yes.
as something to be proud of. And they're like really excited when they talk to me to tell me that they're only eating 1,200 calories. Like I'm going to be excited for them, or I'm going to, congratulate them, or maybe reaffirm that they're doing everything right because that's what they want to hear. We want to reaffirm the things that we're doing. And you guys, I'm not out here to say that there is not a time and place for lower calories because there absolutely is. There is a time and place. I'm one of those people that I really don't start losing until my calories get pretty low, honestly. But the difference is my calories are low for a period of time. I don't live at low calories, right? It's very strategic when I go into a dieting phase and I come out of that dieting phase. I normalize calories. And, flex for me is I can eat relatively, I can eat 23, 24, 2,500 calories a day and sustain and maintain my physique. But I also have to go pretty low in calories when I do want to lose body fat. And so there's intentionality again behind it. There's a process, there's a strategy. And so I'm not saying that there's not a time and place for 1,200 calories. I'm not saying that somebody will never eat as little as 1,200 calories for a period of time. Obviously, height and weight, and, there's so many things that go into how many calories a day you should be eating. I just want to
Absolutely.
get to a place where we normalize and we celebrate being able to eat more instead of people looking at that and being like, that's so much food. And this is where, again, the power of understanding how to truly track and what the education piece that comes with that. Because I am the queen, you guys, of bulking things up. I can have a big bowl of food and it looks like it is, and it is a lot of food, but it's very, very little calories spent. I'm the queen of that. But again, it's because I understand and I've tracked for a long enough time and I know how to, I do this when I'm in dieting phases to keep my belly happy. But I'm just saying that you can have something that looks like a lot and it can be very little calories, and you have something that looks very little and it can be very calorically dense. Like Ann said, her peanut butter. That's why she measures it, because has anybody ever gone in for like a spoonful of peanut butter? Like I promise you, you're going in for like 3 servings. You're not going in for one. Because if you have never measured out peanut butter, you'll understand why Anne measures peanut butter. Because it's like one serving is 29 grams, 32 grams. 32 grams is one serving of peanut butter, and it's 190 calories in one serving of peanut butter, you guys. 32 grams is not a lot of peanut butter. So when you're going in with your spoonful for your apple in the afternoon, and there's nothing wrong with that, there's nothing wrong. And then you don't really track, or you've never really tracked, and you're trying to convince me you're only eating 1,200 calories a day, but you just gave yourself 3 servings of peanut butter for like clocking in at almost 600 calories and just
Yeah.
nut butter, right? And so that is what we're talking about here, is the education piece of how many calories you're truly consuming. Or you go to pour the olive oil in your pan to saute your veggies. Oil is so calorically dense. Very little oil is a lot of calories. And so, same things with butters, and just fat sources in general are very calorically dense. But the education part of this is how you go out to restaurants, like I was saying, and be very mindful and be able to make simple swaps that allow me to have the food that I want and the dessert, because I make very small changes that make a big difference in how many calories I'm consuming. So I'm able to enjoy all the things. And this doesn't come from clean eating for me to have the body that I love, because I eat foods all of the time that would never be considered clean. It comes from the education part of it, because again, there's so many women trapped in this clean eating box, and they're still overweight and they're still frustrated, and rightfully so, because you are doing what you think is all of the right things, right? And you're busting ass. You're working harder than a lot of people around you, and you're still not getting to where you want to go. And it's It's the mentality of just the, like the clean eating trend that we're in right now versus again, just the awareness and the understanding that goes with it.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out that there, when you shift that mentality to I am feeding my muscles.
Hmm.
So if you're working out, if you're, running, riding, going to the gym, lifting weights, and then you're not eating enough calories, your muscles are not going to be able to get maximum effect, right? Because you're not feeding them.
Yep.
Of course, they're not going to be able to grow because they don't have enough energy to grow.
Yep. 100%. And your nutrition, I mean, you can have the best gym split. You could be busting. And this is something that's so very common. Women are busting ass in the gym 6, 7 days a week. And they're like, Nicole, I just want to look like I work out. Why don't I look like I work out? And I'm like, because your nutrition shit. You're not giving your body what it needs to look like you work out. Like you want, what you want requires muscle. For you to add muscle to your frame, your body needs the raw materials to be able to do so. And I think that's not think I know for a fact because I can ramble on this forever. That's a whole other podcast for another day. But I mean, your nutrition matching your training is the only way you'll end up with the physique that you're after. The only way. And that doesn't come from less food. That typically comes from more food. And it feels like Anne says, she's shaking her head. It feels very foreign at first. It feels very uncomfortable. It goes against everything you thought you knew when it came to weight loss. But a lot of times, like, I need you to get out of this, I need to lose weight mentality and start adopting the I want to change the way my body looks mentality, because that's a different approach than just losing scale weight. It's a completely different approach than just losing scale weight. So, anything else to add, Anne, before we wrap up here? This has been great. This has been such I love having conversations where we can just riff. So,
I know. We gotta, well, the last thing I wanted to point out is we have to heal the body so that it actually can burn fuel efficiently and help us lose weight. So we've gotta stop treating our body like it's the enemy and food like it's the enemy, and start actually embracing both. And the
100%.
only way that we're going to do that is with data. The only way that we're going to do that is getting over that hump, thinking that the only way that I'm going to get my needs met or lose weight is by being awful to myself and not eating anything that I enjoy.
Yep. And I'm going to add to this because I know this is the majority of women listening to this podcast. You are probably perimenopause. If not, you've already hit menopause into postmenopause. And I can promise you right now, I can promise you when it comes to hormones and how your body responds, and like Anne said, like truly giving your body what it needs to do what you want it to do. Our hormones are already working against us at this point, you guys, and not eating enough is just another massive stressor on the body that just downregulates hormones more so than, we're already losing them. So just understanding that piece of it is huge when it comes to your menopausal body, and not even just looking your best, but quite honestly feeling your best, because you're already in a place where you probably are exhausted and nauseous and forgetful and anxious and irritable and all of the things that come with declining hormones. And not eating enough is just adding fuel to that fire, or not fueling your body correctly is just truly only, like I said, fueling that fire. So thank you again for another great conversation. I truly appreciate it. And as always, you guys, if you guys find value to the podcast, you guys enjoyed the podcast, liking and sharing and tagging helps us tremendously. And if you're in a place where you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired and you are ready for actual support, working with a team who understands the female body, metabolism, hormones, you get more of Dr. Ann for her calls that she hosts for our team monthly. My application is linked in the bio, but we'll see you guys in the next episode. Ciao.
If this is helpful, give me a like, follow me, or subscribe for more.